If you are going out and doing approaches on your own, first of all, congratulations, you're awesome, I applaud you for taking action. But secondly, you're missing a huge opportunity. Because the easiest way to get good at this, and the easiest way to succeed at this, is not on your own. It's with a support network, and specifically with someone there with you in real time. Now, a coach would be great, but right now we're gonna talk about the second best alternative, which is a wingman. For anyone who doesn't know what a wingman is another dude who's out there trying to help you get laid while you're also helping him get laid. This comes from the movie Top Gun, where literally two people were wingmen, but they also helped each other pick up a girl, so there you go. Having a wingman is an absolute cheat code, and that's why I've already done a long video on the basics of winging, which you can find linked in the description. But what I'm gonna talk about in this video is a little bit out there, a little bit wild. I'm gonna talk about some advanced winging strategies that are absolutely gonna take your results to the next level. So here we go. But really fast, before I get into the advanced stuff, I want to tell you 4 quick winging basics that you need to know in order for the advanced stuff to make sense. And again, each of these 4 points I go into in much more detail in that other basic winging video if you want to check that out. Number 1, wingmen are for groups of 2 girls. If there is a girl by herself, you mostly don't need a wingman, although there is an advanced strategy we'll talk about later. If there's a bigger group than 2, you usually don't need a wingman. You're better off actually talking to them by yourself, because then you can talk to your girl one-on-one and the others can talk amongst themselves at some point in the interaction. So wingmen are specifically for groups of 2 girls. But groups of 2 girls occur crazy often in the real world, and taking 2 girls home together with you and your wing is a very, very common thing to have happen in the real world, so it's insanely valuable. Number 2, when you are talking in a group of 2 girls with your wingman, you want to do what we call splitting the set. You want to talk mostly one-on-one with your girl while he talks mostly one-on-one with his girl. This allows you to have a much more in-depth, intimate conversation that can go a lot further than if you had to keep the whole group together the whole time. Number 3, this is my personal rule, but I think it's a very good one. I think one you should follow. Whoever opens chooses the girl they like. So if I walk over and start talking to the group, I get to pick the girl I like, and then if you come in, you have to take the other one. And obviously you switch back and forth, be fair to your wingman, but I like this rule for a few reasons. Number 1, it encourages opening. It encourages you to not stand around talking aimlessly with your wingman and using them as an excuse to not take action. Number 2, it makes it clear what's going on so there's no infighting between you and your wingman. And number 3, it encourages proper game, because whether you're with your wingman or solo, you need to be picking your target very early on. You need to be setting the interaction up in such a way you're creating drama and tension with the girl you're interested in, ideally from the first few seconds. So if the first person going in chooses the target, that means they can game the same way when they're by themselves and when they have a wing, so it's incredibly efficient. The 4th and final winging basic I want to share in this video is that when you are with your wingman is more important than the girls. This is important because it gives value to you and value to your wingman, and it makes you both seem so much cooler. A lot of guys make the mistake of being hyper-focused on the girls in the interaction and almost ignoring their wingman. For example, you're talking to the girls, your wingman comes in, you're like, oh, hey man, what's up? So anyway, what I was talking about was, no. When your wingman comes in, he is the most interesting, coolest person in the room. Think about what it's like when girls meet their friends. How they go nuts, like, oh my God, I haven't seen you, Lucy, when they haven't seen each other in like 5 minutes, okay? You don't have to be like that, but they are treating each other like they are the most important people in the world to each other. You need to do that with your wingman. So for example, if your girl is telling a really interesting story and your wingman interjects, you immediately give him the attention, give him the floor, act like he's very, very cool. That should be the standard. And in particular, when your wingman comes in, you want to usually give him what we call the accomplishment intro. You want to introduce him and say, hey, this is my really good friend. Hey, this is a very cool guy. Hey, I've known this guy for 10 years. He's super cool. Something along those lines. You want to have him come in like he's important, and you want him to be able to share in whatever value you've created before him arriving. So those are 4 key basics of winging that are necessary for you to understand the rest of this video. But if you want to really understand the basics of winging and go far more in depth, I do encourage you to check out that other winging video I did before. This is the last time I'm going to reference it, but it is down in the description. Okay, with the basics out of the way, let's get into the advanced stuff. This is the new stuff. This is exciting stuff. This is stuff you've probably never seen before. First advanced topic I want to cover is when you should go into the interaction as a wingman. So if you are the second person entering the interaction, when should you go in? And there are really 3 different options. One option is to actually go over at the exact same time as your wingman, but if you do that, only one of you can open. If you both open, it is fucking weird. Like insanely, ridiculously, over the top weird, and will probably ruin it instantly. Think of it this way. just doing a cold approach is unusual enough. Two guys going over and simultaneously doing a cold approach looks scripted. It looks weird. It looks like it's on candid camera, okay? So don't do that. When you go over together, one of you needs to open, and the other person's job is then to listen, look for an opportunity to have an opinion, have a joke, have some feedback, or possibly just look for an opportunity to follow up and split the interaction, say, oh, tell me more about what you just said, or that was really interesting what you just said. Something along those lines. But they're looking for an opportunity to seamlessly jump in after the other person has opened. That method of going over at the same time may be necessary if the group is moving. So if you're talking to girls who are moving, it would be a little weird if one wingman opens and then the other wingman comes in 5 minutes later and 4 blocks later. It's like, how did you know to meet up at that particular location? So in the case where the two girls are in motion, it's often better to go over at the same time as your wingman. However, when the girls are stopped, it's oftentimes easier to have your wingman go over and then for you to come in afterwards. So let's say you are actually coming in afterwards. When should you go in? Well, there are 2 options here. Option number 1, and really the best and most common option, you want to go in when the group is hooked. That means they want the interaction to continue more than they want it to end. And you can tell this by them participating or investing in the interaction. So if they are laughing, that's a good sign. If they are talking, that's a really good sign. If they seem to be more invested in the interaction than your wingman, that's a really good sign. If your wingman is sitting down with them, or your wingman has moved them somewhere where your wingman has led, those are particularly good signs as well. Those are all indicators that it's been hooked. Now the beauty is, if you go in and it's already been hooked, that means your wingman already has value. So you can come in and you don't have to establish value. You can already gain the value he created. It sets you up in an optimal situation where you can be high value without being try hard at all. You can be a high value and have done a cold approach without actually having done a cold approach. So you've taken away one of the most awkward parts of game and just dropped yourself in the middle of a good interaction. The final, more subtle time you may want to go into the interaction is actually when things are going very, very badly. If your wingman opens and he's about to lose the girl's attention, they're about to walk away, that's a time when you may need to go in, not because it's ideal, but because it's the only option. You need to go in and save the interaction. In particular, if one girl is engaged and the other one seems to want to leave, it's often very good for you to go in and open the other girl. And little advanced nuance here, oftentimes if you're doing this, you should open the other girl as though you don't know your wingman. You should just open as though it's you starting your own unique conversation. In particular, in a social environment like a bar where it is plausible, where you could just be meeting another guy, that's oftentimes the best way to go. And the reason why in this case you want to open like you don't know your wingman is that the girl who's leaving is already indicating she doesn't like your wingman. So why would you want to go in and associate with someone they don't like? The girls can obviously find out later that you guys are together, and that's fine once they both like you individually. The next advanced point I want to cover. So I mentioned when I was talking about winging basics that the standard best practice when your wingman comes in is to give him what we call the accomplishment intro. Hey, this is my friend, he's super cool, etc. And that does work, but it is a little bit bland. If you're confident, if you have good game and you have good rapport with your wingman, you can actually do something even better, which is you can give him the opposite of the accomplishment intro. You can give him the tension building intro. I love to do this. Like, oh, this is my friend, he's a total asshole, but you know, you deserve it, so it's fine, right? And actually make it playful, whatever. Hey, this is my friend, you two are absolutely not going to get along, but this is going to be fucking fun, so I have to introduce you, right? Something that's creating fun, creating tension, creating some drama, creating some plot line, as opposed to just being like, oh, he's great. Another one that's kind of fun, I'd be like, this is my friend, he may look like an asshole, he may act like an asshole. Don't let that fool you. He really is an asshole. These types of things, if you have good rapport with your wingman, can be even better than accomplishment intro because it shows that you are on good terms with each other. It shows you're having fun. It shows you are good friends without having to say it. It's usually better to show something than to say it in game. The other thing though that's really, really useful to do when you bring your wingman in is to bring him up to speed on what's going on. Tell him who your target is. Right? So you might talk about how you and your girl aren't getting along, you're having tension and drama, and that indicates to him which girl your target is. Or you might say that this girl and he are not going to get along, or that this girl and he have something in common. You're indicating which one you think he should talk to, and you're also giving him kind of a platform or like a little hook into the interaction so he can get things started very, very smoothly. He doesn't have to come up with something organic to say in that kind of case. One final thing you can do and bring your wingman in. Let's say that he should have come in but hasn't come in yet. You could call him over, and in that case what you maybe want to do is tell the girls some cool stuff about him and then call him over and be like, hey, I was just telling them about XYZ, some cool thing about him, so that he now again has a platform to get things started. So that's another way to get your wingman into the interaction when necessary and also get him up to speed at the same time. Okay, next advanced tip for you. I mentioned that the purpose of having a wingman is when you're dealing with 2 girls. This is one of the biggest problems guys have when they and their wingman both have decent game. And this is what leads to them having long conversations that don't actually lead to taking the girls home, don't actually lead to results. And what happens is you have great conversations with the 2 of you and the 2 girls all together. And then you take them to another place all together. And you take them back to your place all together. And then they never separate. And it's impossible to get physical. It's impossible to have sex. And then eventually they end up leaving disappointed at the end of the night because everyone is attracted and nobody got laid. What can you do about this? Well, one of the best things you can do is start separating the group at various times throughout the night. And in fact, separating them and bringing them back together can be very, very good, or even separating them entirely. Most of the time, though, you're not going to be able to separate the girls entirely early on and just keep them separate all night. But what you want to do is establish the trend, the precedent that they've been separated and come back together and it hasn't been a problem. So if while you're sitting, you take your girl to the bar, you leave your wingman and his girl isolated one-on-one, now they can have a one-on-one conversation, you can have a one-on-one conversation, you can make out, get more physical, talk more intimately while you're separated, while no one is judging the girls. You bring them back together, the interaction can have escalated, and also the girls can have trust because you separated them, you voluntarily brought them back together, and now they're not like, oh my God, I can't let her out of my sight, because she's already been out of her sight and it was completely fine. And you as a gentleman brought her back without her friend having to be like, oh, I have to go find my girlfriend, I'm worried about her, etc. Okay, you took care of that for her. So moving the girl around within a bar environment can be very, very good. Or let's say you're moving between venues, moving from one bar to another bar, or maybe in day game you're moving from a park to a bar, or a park to a coffee shop, or a park to a restaurant, something like that. It's a good idea for one wingman and his girl to walk faster, and the other wingman and his girl to walk slower. So you get this natural separation of 50 yards, 100 yards, something like that. It doesn't really even have to be that much, just to be out of kind of earshot and somewhat separated. But if like one of you turns the corner first and it's a little bit and the other one turns the corner, oh, they were out of each other's sight and everything was fine. The more often that happens, the more often they're separated and everything's fine, it indicates to them that level of safety and it makes it easier to separate later. Because eventually, most of the time, in order to succeed in sleeping with girls as wingmen, you're going to have to separate them. There are times when you can take a girls back to a hotel room and you can just all have sex on the same bed. It has happened. Or there are times when one of you can have the bedroom and one of you can take a girl in the bathroom or whatever. It does happen, but it's much, much, much harder. Also, the way logistics work at most people's places, there aren't just extra spare rooms everywhere for sex to go down in. So ideally, you want to have enough trust that separation can happen so that if you are back in your place, you've been apart enough times, they feel like, hey, we're gonna run out and get some alcohol and come right back. The girl's like, yeah, that's fine. Right? Because they've been there, done that before. The next advanced point I want to bring up that kind of violates standard basic winging is that while I mentioned that winging is for groups of 2 and you typically want to have 2 isolated conversations, there are times when you may not want to do that. There are times when you may want to intentionally leave your wingman talking to your girl or talking to both girls. So a great opportunity is, let's say you're talking to a group of girls for a while and one of you has to go to the bathroom. Great idea to just go, leave your wingman, let them talk to both girls. That lets your girl get to know that he's cool and safe so she can have more trust that her girlfriend is in okay hands and is with a cool guy. It also allows them to ask questions about you. And your wingman can brag about you and say cool things about you that you couldn't say about yourself. If you say cool things about yourself, it's you trying to look good and you trying to get laid. If he says cool things about you, that's just him being a good friend without a direct agenda. It will be perceived as more genuine, more cool, and if anything, he'll actually gain comfort from the fact that he's showing that he's a good friend and showing that you guys know stuff about each other and that you're not total strangers. So leaving your wingman for a little bit to talk to both girls and then having him leave you to talk to both girls can be really, really powerful in terms of the girl's ultimate decision that, oh, my girl's with a cool guy, it's okay for her to go home with him. It's really, really powerful to do this a few times during the interaction. Okay, so now we're gonna get to the really advanced stuff. In the last point, I mentioned that sometimes you talking to your wingman's girl or him talking to your girl can be beneficial for comfort building purposes. But there's another reason why you may want that to happen, and that is for value-based purposes. If you notice that your wingman's girl seems to be losing attraction or he's losing her attention, oftentimes a really cool thing you can do is actually just switch roles. You go start talking to her and actually, start teasing, start having fun, start having more banter, bring the interaction, bring the mood up. In particular, the way that game works is you're gonna have kind of a bantery phase when you're all strangers, and then at a certain point, you're getting to know the girl, and the conversation can be deeper. A very common issue in game in general, never mind winging game, is losing attraction in the comfort phase. That things just get boring once you and the girl have agreed you like each other. If you notice that's happening, if you notice that your wingman's side of the interaction is kind of getting a little more lax, getting a little more boring, maybe switching and pumping up the energy can be very, very good. In particular, since you guys watch this channel, and I assume you know a bit about game, you oftentimes may have better game than your wingman. If that's the case, it's your responsibility oftentimes to keep his side of the group good. Oftentimes when I'm out with students on, say, a boot camp, I will be winging with them. I'll notice that their girl is kind of losing interest. I will intentionally switch with them. I'll switch targets for a little bit, not actually switch targets, but switch who we're talking to, pump up her state, pump up her emotions, get her a little bit aroused. The value that I create because I'm his friend is transferable back to him. Then we switch back and she's more into him than she was before we switched. One quick but important note when switching targets with your wingman, you want to communicate and you want to have trust. Remember that first rule of winging, whoever opens gets to pick their target, gets to pick the girl they're into. Make sure that if you do switch, your wingman either trusts you a lot or knows why you're doing it, knows what you're doing, and can play along. You don't want a situation where you do that and your wingman gets bitter or is resistant or you start infighting with your wingman. So make sure you communicate, make sure there's trust before you do any switching of targets. And one more point regarding target switching, sometimes the girls will just switch for you. Let's say you're talking to the girls, it's going well, they go to the bathroom, and they come back, and each girl sits on the opposite guy's lap as who they were talking to before. Well, in that case, they switched for you, so, don't be dumb. Next advanced winging topic, communication with your wingman. If you develop a good winging relationship over time, or if you just are intentional about your winging, a great thing you can do is to have sort of like code words to communicate with your wingman. It is actually completely fine to lean over and whisper something in your wingman's ear during the interaction. It's fine. You would be shocked how okay it is and how much you can get away with it. The girls usually ignore it, won't call you out on it, and if they do, you're even like, doesn't matter, that's between us. It's a secret. You don't have to worry about that. You can communicate. However, it is even better a lot of times if you can communicate without being so obvious. Especially from a building comfort standpoint. If it appears like you guys have secrets with each other, it may make the girls trust you a bit less. So it is nice to be able to communicate without having to make it seem like you are. And there are plenty of ways you can do this. You can text something to your wingman, or you can show him something on your phone and it can be like a little message. There's all kinds of ways you can do it. But one of the most subtle ones is with code words. And so I'm going to give you two examples of this from my own personal experience that are very, very useful. One of these is kind of a famous one. It's a nod to a friend of mine from long ago. Some of you may recognize it. And the other one is one that's kind of unique to me. So the first code I want to bring up is an old school thing called the vodka protocol, which I love the name of it. I love it. It sounds like some Mission Impossible shit. But the vodka protocol basically is this. If you find out something that is really favorable for your wingman and makes it be like, we should definitely stay with these two girls, this is a good investment of our time, then you would say something like, oh, we should do shots tonight, or we should have another drink, right? And that's good. You're communicating that to him. And also, if things are going well in a bar environment, having another drink and continuing the night is the right tactical move for the information you've just got. So you've number one, communicated, but number two, you've taken the right action for the communication that you're putting out there, right? So then your wingman would hear, oh, we should do shots tonight, and think, okay, cool. He just found out something very good. So for example, if I just found out that my wingman's girl just broke up with her boyfriend and they're trying to get her laid tonight, we should do shots tonight, right? Or, we should do another drink in a little bit. That would be indicating that to him, and that's the vodka protocol. If on the other hand, I found out maybe she has a boyfriend and it's not gonna go somewhere for him, then I might be like, you know what, no more drinks for me tonight, I'm kinda not feeling it. And that's a way of saying, I don't think this has legs, I don't think this can go all the way, so let's wrap it up, maybe just take a phone number, but this is not the group we wanna commit our entire night to. Another great personal example of communication actually comes from doing winging in order to have a threesome. So with my bisexual girlfriend that I was doing threesomes with on a regular basis, we had a little code because girls usually are very good socially, and this girl in particular was incredibly witty, incredibly good at getting girls attracted, but she wasn't very good at escalating because as a girl, usually the guy escalates on you, so she wasn't used to having to escalate. And oftentimes in a threesome situation, it's good if the girl escalates because she has a much broader window to escalate. It's much more acceptable than for the guy. And so I would have to remind her to escalate. And again, we were doing threesomes in Vegas a lot, and so I would mention the DJ because it's about like the night progressing and running out of time and stuff like that. So if I ever said something to her like, when does the DJ come on? Or I think the DJ comes on around 2. My mentioning the DJ was me telling her, okay, it's time to escalate. So this was number one, a reminder for her to escalate, but number two, it was a calibration because as a man, I had to calibrate my escalation a lot more than a girl would. So it was a good way for us to communicate, a good way for us to move the interaction forward. So when you're with your wingman, try and come up with the things that need to be communicated and then come up with a way to do it subtly. Again, vodka protocol is great. Again, the DJ's coming on it too is great. Things along those lines are great, but come up with your own codes with your own personal wingman. You can forge the relationship that works for you, but no matter what it is, it's super important that you communicate. Okay, for the final technique, which violates basically every rule of winging, and this one is absolutely gonna blow your minds, sometimes it's actually a good idea for two guys to talk to one girl, particularly if they both have pretty good game. So I mentioned winging is for groups of two, all of that kind of stuff. Usually if you're by yourself, having a wingman there, having an extra guy there is just messing it up, muddling it. But for periods of time, it actually can be really, really good. So here are two fun, advanced things you can do. Number one, what you can do is you and your wingman can actually both hit on the girl and talk about how you would like to have a reverse threesome, or technically for her, just threesome with her. You would be shocked how into this girls are. You would be shocked how much of a female fantasy it is to have two hot guys at the same time. It will get her incredibly, incredibly aroused. Now, you don't have to actually go through with that with your wingman. Just talking about it and getting her aroused is good, and then she can find throughout the night that she has a better connection with one of you or is more attracted to one of you, and then just go home with one of you. Just because you are both talking about it doesn't mean it has to be that way in the end. It still has the effect of turning her on, still has the effect of getting her to think sexually, so it still is a net positive. Another even more counterintuitive way of two guys talking to one girl is for you to actually fake compete, fake AMOG. And by the way, AMOG just means alpha male other guy. It means there's two guys trying to get the same girl's attraction, attention, trying to take the same girl home. You and your wingman can actually kind of do this. It may even happen organically if there's some miscommunication about who a target is for a little bit, and then hopefully you communicate and sort it out. What ends up happening is if guy A is trying to game her and guy B is trying to game her, instead of her thinking, am I gonna go home with one of these guys? There sometimes can be this subtle shift in her mind of which one am I gonna go home with? Which one am I gonna choose, right? And so it's not about am I going to, it's which one is my preference. And once she selects in her mind, this guy is my preference, that puts him on this incredible value pedestal. And it's also this incredible honest value signal that he was able to outcompete another attractive guy. So this can be a massive attraction magnifier. This is incredibly fun to do if you have a wingman who also has good game and you're able to play around with each other and you're able to sort of dance near the fire without getting jealous of each other and without like stepping on toes. Obviously, if you don't have enough trust with your wingman that you believe they won't steal your girl or they believe you won't steal the girl or something like that, if you don't have that level of trust, this won't work. But if you have a good wingman where you are actually close friends, you have a lot of trust, and you both have a good game, this can be very, very fun to play around. I hope you enjoyed those techniques. I hope they opened your mind a little bit to the situations where deeply understanding game can actually allow you to break a lot of the rules. That's what advanced game sometimes is. If as a beginner or intermediate, you're learning certain rules. As an advanced guy, you learn when to break the rules and actually be more effective. So I encourage you to take these techniques, but even more so, I mostly just encourage you, get a good wingman. And there are some great ways to do that. Number one, if you're out and you meet guys that are doing game, introduce yourself, get to know them, become their wingman. Number two, in a lot of cities, I actually do live speaking events and I bring wingmen together. So if you want to go to toddvdane.com/tour, you can sign up and you will be notified of those events where you will be able to meet up with local wingmen in your city and actually get great guys to go out with. And obviously, the ultimate in winging would be to have an advanced coach right there working with you. Obviously, if you were to come with me on a boot camp or a one-on-one coaching session, I could be your wing, I could help you through all these things, and I could even talk to the ugly girl for you while you get to talk to her hot friend with my support. So if you're interested in any of those options, go to toddvdane.com/coaching, and I'd be happy to be your wingman as well. But regardless of how you do it, winging is incredibly powerful. Don't neglect this area of game.